Justin Hummel, and I'm a manager at Westwood, manager of academic technologies, and we're here today to demonstrate a number of things that we're doing with ebooks. And I'm going to turn it over here to two of the principal authors of our first ebook, in this format anyway. We used our old premise formats a number of years ago. Anybody use the old casebooks in premise? All done. Steve Nichols is a professor at Wake Forest University and has been working on this for about, what would you say? Well, we introduced it last year at CALI, so it's been at least a year since we started working on this. And David Epstein has joined us in the last number of months too. Joel Freeman from Tulane is working on another version of his casebook for online, and then Doug Powell, the publisher, is going to be answering any publishing questions you may have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Hi, thanks for coming. We're really excited about this. I don't know if we call it a product or a service. It's actually both. And we did introduce it last year for the first time at CALI, and there it was mainly in design and vision form. We'd made some steps. But we said then that we were really committed to this, and we've continued with it. West has added folks and added resources. And where we are now is we actually have a book that's in this e-form. We have actually a couple books working in this form. The idea eventually will be that, assuming all the pilots go well, is that all that Western Foundation materials will be in this form, unless an author doesn't want her materials in this form. And what I want to emphasize to you today, that this is first going to be web-based, and what you're going to see is a book essentially online, which in and of itself is no big deal. There are a lot of us have been using Twin and putting our materials online for quite some time. But this is very different, very significantly different in three different dimensions. And that's really what I want to talk about today after we first look at what the book looks like. There will be an entry point online. There will be what we're calling a public library where all West and Foundation materials in this form will be available for folks to look at. But I want to go right into the book. And this is the new bankruptcy law. We're not down to my bookshelf. The new bankruptcy law, and David Epstein and I have for several years been on a debtor-creditor book that's been used, and this is essentially the new edition of our debtor-creditor book, and we have several other authors that we've included in this, including practicing lawyers, very well-known practicing lawyers, and bankruptcy judges who are participating in this project with us. And we're building this book online, and if Justin will show yeah, I know.
That's Steve's high school.
We're gonna change that. We should back up that and show the table of contents, so you can have all that kind of stuff on there. But then it expands out. In all of this, we've actually been working at putting content. So it's not just been building the thing, but actually putting content in there. And all the authors have been working on this. And you can see the system looks like the table of contents. All of these entries have materials behind them. You can look, for instance, the Piper case, which we've loaded. And this is a case that we have edited. Emory Piper, the 11th Circuit case. David actually edited this case. It's a long, somewhat long case, so we have edited it. But if you go back to the top, you'll see that the case is cited. If you want the whole version of the case, then you can click that, and this links immediately into Westlaw. The entire case will come up. But most of the cases we have in here are cases that we have actually edited ourselves. But the full version there is available. This was a case that actually does involve Epstein. Epstein was the lawyer in this case.
That's why it was so important that I be able to edit it, that I could edit out all the unfavorable references.
So he got to edit the case, but where is the little thing we put at the? Oh yeah, I put an editor's note at the bottom. He lost this case, so I wrote, none of the other authors of these materials joined or took part in Epstein's arguments. On the other hand, not all of us laughed. So he got to edit the case for what he wanted, but we added the editor's note. But this is an edited case. But behind it, with an easy click to Westlaw, is the case itself. And if you go back to the table of contents, Justin, this essentially looks like what we're all accustomed to with a casebook, with the materials lined up. We have For our purposes right now, we've not put the section numbers, but there are sections and subsections, and it's the usual breakdown, and we're going to add those numbers, although they can be added automatically, the numbering. So here you have a book that's online. That is a big deal. We've been doing that for quite some time. Here's the big deal about this, and the reason I think this is really an important development in law school publishing. The first big deal is how this book got there. This is not only an online book that could be used online, but there's actually an engine behind this where authors, those of us working on this book, an easy template for us to use to actually build this book online. We add the content ourselves into this system, and it builds the book for us. And if you're working with authors around the country as we are here, it's very, very nice to have this on the web with access to it. We can see each other's work. We can make comments. So you can actually build the thing on yourself online. And the way you do it's a very simple process with kind of an outlining tool, and you simply add the cases, add the statutes, add the problems, use whatever format that you want to. And we followed the standard format. We've got chapters, we've got sections. We have some subsections of the other chapters. We have problems, we have statutes. Scroll on down, Justin, and chapter 2 is basic building blocks. In the first section, we'll have a section number out there as discharge. Then under that, we have some text behind that. And all of the materials cited in the text, of course, is hot linked automatically. So when we upload the material into the appropriate place, automatically all the citations are linked if we want them linked. Just as true in Twin. So we can put problems in there and put the sites or the cases, the statutes we want the kids to look at, and they're immediately available to them. So this is pretty much in the standard. We've got, again, edited cases with the full versions that are available, statutes that we have edited. So we're not just linking directly to the full statute or to the full case. We are linking to edited versions of those, but the full version is available with a simple click. And you do this sitting from your desk in your office, or you do this sitting from your kitchen table at home hooked up to the internet. You go to a site where the authors can work, and blinded from the public can work and actually build this thing and put it together. So this is not just an online book. It is first an authoring tool. It's an authoring engine, essentially, that allows you to put the materials together. You upload the materials. It's automatically converted to HTML. It's automatically links to any statutes, any cases, any secondary materials, any materials in Westlaw. It will automatically be linked to. And we make full use of that throughout the book. So the first big deal about this is that this is a machine for authoring. It is a tool for authoring. We don't imagine that every Weston Foundation author will want to use this machine herself to build the books. It's very likely, although not certain, that there will be some group at West that will take materials and put it into this form. But there will be a substantial number, and I think a growing number over the years, who will actually want to build the books themselves on this device. And it's nothing more to it than simply having a case that you've edited, having some text, having a problem, and uploading it, the simple click of a button, to where you want it to appear in your book. And it all then, the system itself collapses it all together into a very nice linear form such as this. So first big deal is this is a new way for authors to collaborate and to put materials together in a book form. The second big deal, which is even bigger, I think, is that if someone is thinking about adopting Epstein and Nichols or any other West or Foundation book, and we're in the process of putting Joel's book in this form as well, what you can do as a law faculty member is to go and look at the book, take a look at it there online, every piece of it, and if you decide to adopt it, then what you can do is, and this is a technical term, you can fiddle with the book yourself. An adopting professor can rearrange all of the materials in any way that she wants to and add her own materials and push a button and republish, so that you've got the book of Epstein and Nichols and you. that then will be available to the student. So first, the authors of the book build the book online using this device. And they've got West and all the full services of West behind them. Automatic conversion of HTML, automatic conversion and linking of all the sites, all of that. Secondly, when the book is there, someone who adopts it can change it. Now, ask David, where'd he go? David, to talk about the importance to law professors of being able to fiddle with materials.
Sure. Yeah, building on what Steve said, and bankruptcy is a wonderful example of this. Taking Steve's first point with respect to this as an authoring tool. Bankruptcy is just one of a number of law school subjects that's rapidly changing. We're not concerned here with having to do handouts or even problems of moving stuff around. If the law changes in the middle of the semester, the book changes in the middle of the semester, and it changes fairly effortlessly. But more significant than that, I mean, each of us, even when you teach your own book, you end up teaching it a different way virtually every time. You're always thinking about, well, maybe case 2 really ought to be case 4, and I want to move stuff around. Or I want to consider topics in different order. Or I want to consider this topic in real depth, and I want to consider this other topic fairly summarily. One of the virtues of this particular format is it makes it very easy for the teacher who thinks ahead of time to restructure the book at the very beginning of the semester, before the semester starts, and move things around in a way that makes most sense for her. But even for the teacher who sort of gets the bright idea in the middle of the game. I've taught Chapter 1, and gosh, I now see that I really want to spend a lot more time on this topic, or I want to go to this topic next. It's not a matter of now having to tell students, well, we're going to go to page 417, and then we're going to go to page 343, and then we're going to go to page 1119, and the students are thinking, what in the hell is going on here? Why are we doing this in an eccentric way when you can, in essence, put the book together in any way that you want to use it, and it really gives the user not just a richer, more current offering of materials, but it gives the user a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of how she wants to use it or when she wants to do what.
And Joel Freeman, one.
I just wanted to mention something. If you could just go back to the table of contents.
Here.
For the web. For posterity. This is really a big deal. I'm just finishing a book now in civil procedure, and we have one of these listservs, for civil procedure teachers, and you'd be amazed how many times civil procedure teachers will post messages about, well, I start with personal jurisdiction. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm starting with subject matter jurisdiction. Oh, no, I'm going to start with pleading. And you think, well, what difference does it make? I mean, if all the books have them, so you start with chapter 6 first and then you go to chapter 1. What's the big deal? Apparently, there is a big deal. And the beauty of this, particularly in a class like that where there are so many different approaches to ordering the same subjects, that if you're the user of the book, it's very attractive to you because you can physically change the location of the chapters. But it's also very interesting for you as the author of the book, because if you're the author of a book that can do that, when the other books in the field can't do that, this is what I'm hoping, and what my children are hoping, and more importantly, what my wife is hoping, that makes this book much more attractive because it is totally configurable, and as Steve's going to tell you, it's not only configurable in terms of rearranging, but you can configure it with your own stuff and put it in there, and it becomes integrated into one whole.
And let's actually, Justin, walk them through and just show them how easy it is. So you're looking at this book. We've written it. It's up there. And we've locked it as far as the authors are concerned. You've decided to adopt it and use it. Then as an adopting author, you'll be able to go in and add new content, delete content that we've put there, add your own materials, rearrange in any way that you want to. If you want to move a problem to a different chapter or you want to swap chapters, you've got full flexibility all the way down to the individual problem level of rearranging, and also of deleting any piece and also inserting your own pieces at whatever point you want to. And this will also be used, it would be tied very closely to Twin, to be used for the quizzing functions and the discussion forums and all of that. So we're trying to blend this and make this not separate from Westlaw, but together with Twin, all part of one whole. If you go, what's that?
We're adding a section.
Okay, you're adding a section right now.
So we could upload a file, which is similar to what we saw earlier with Twin. We can take and we can just type in text too. Once you create the section, it's automatically entered into the list of content. Then you can go in and modify the book by arranging that content to fit it to wherever you wanted it to be. When I chose to create it, I think I chose to put it under a particular chapter. So if we go back to our table of contents, we should see Steve's new special section down here. If I can remember where I created it. Was it 5?
No, Control F.
There it is, Steve's special section.
Okay. Where is it? Oh, yeah, down there. So you put it, and then you can place it. It's not, by the way, it's not random. When you add new material, it doesn't just kind of randomly add it where it wants to, and you target where you want it to be. So you can add your materials anywhere you want them by adding a new section, and also be simply by typing in the materials yourself. Or what I typically do is I'm doing it on a word processor, and I'm simply uploading that file. And then you have the thing going up, and it stays on the server at West. But once I upload it there, I can also change it there as the author of these materials. So I can go in, I put something up, and later on I want to change my mind about what I say in that section or whatever. I can very easily edit it online. And then, of course, if I decide that in authoring the book that I want to change and move this section somewhere else, it's very easy for me to do that. But also the adopting professor. Let's go into one of the chapters and move some of the sections, show them how you move some of the sections around.
Go to arrange content, and then we can choose which part of the book we want to arrange.
Let's arrange sections.
We'll arrange them in chapter special topics.
So, and move that, yeah, and then this is, and what we've done, I should say right here, one of the things we're doing, this had to do with technology, but our approach, what we're doing, the approach David and I are taking is having about 6 chapters that deal with the fundamentals of bankruptcy. That anybody teaching the course is going to deal with these issues. Maybe in different orders, but you can disagree with that and change the book around. But everybody will agree on the substance of these basic issues. And then we're going to have a section that has selected areas. And then you can take those selected areas that every professor might not want to cover, but a whole lot of professors would, and so they can select the extra materials they want and move them up in the book and put them wherever they want to. You know, a good example might be teaching bankruptcy, dealing with automatic stays. A lot of people just want to deal with 362, the automatic stay, kind of the standard stuff. Some of us would also at that point like to deal with the additional powers of a bankruptcy court, equitable powers, to issue injunctions beyond 362. So we've got, not everybody wants to deal with that, but it is an important subject, so we've got it in the selected topics, and if a professor thinks that's important enough, she can decide to use that piece of material and actually move it up to the chapter that deals with 362 as another section of that, or subsection, or a part of the chapter, whatever it is. So it gives enormous flexibility, not only with moving all this stuff around, but also being able to kind of pick and choose whatever it is that you want to include in your book and where. And so in these, you just pick if you want to move something up or down, or you do just that. And you see when you push the move up, it goes up. And that's all there is to it. And then when you push to save the new section order, then it will be done. It'll be captured in the book. It will be rearranged. And if you've got the automatic numbering feature on, which I do not have turned on right now, but it will automatically renumber all of those sections as well. So if you add new material, it's going to give a new number to it. If it's section 4 in the chapter, whatever, it'll give a new number to the thing, or renumber depending on what happens.
When you add new material, does it have to be, and is it only in the same font and the same size as your material, or is there any way, if I want to configure it, that my material will look physically different than yours?
No, you can configure it yourself. If you want it to look differently, then if you're using a word processor and you've got a different font there, at least it will convert over to HTML. And what we're going to do for the authors doing the books, we're going to use kind of a standard signature, a standard look. There'll be a standard font, be standard this and that, just like with a signature of a casebook, something along those lines. And Foundation may be a little bit different than West. But the materials that you add, depending upon how artful you are, how expert you are at using HTML and those sort of things, you can use different fonts to distinguish your materials. The other thing you can't do is you can't go into a section that the authors of the book have written and change a section they have written. You can delete the section if you want to, or you can demote the section somewhere else, but you won't be able to go in and open up a section that the authors of the book and interlineate in there. You can put something right after it saying I don't agree with this, or this is wrong, or this is stupid. You can add that kind of section, but you won't be able to fiddle with the actual text that's written, except to the extent that you completely delete it if you want to. So you've got a book. Oh, you want to talk? Justin will talk about. Oh, no, go ahead.
This is to your point. This is one of the options we have for adding content. If you don't entirely think that Steve's book is on point for a particular area, you can add a section called Professor's Notes, and this appears automatically then as kind of a supplement then to that piece of the book. It's very easy to add the content. You type in whatever it is you want there and hit add, and it appears automatically. You get a little mark right now that here.
It's like an annotation.
Right.
So in fact, you can change Nichols's content by putting these little professor's notes.
There'll be a little note icon that will appear on any page that has a professor's note.
And also, students will be able to add their notes as well. So using the online version of the book, they can go through and they can add notes just this way on their own e-copy of this book. And what's slick about it is at the end, what they can do, when the course goes along, they can push a button and this thing will spit out for them all of their notes in the order in which they appear in the book, with the chapter numbers, the section numbers, so they've got their notes already in an outline form based upon the outline of the book. So a student could quite literally do old book briefs here in real form, take notes right there on the book that she wanted to do. And then at the end of the week, at the end of the semester, she pushes a button, whatever she wants it, and she gets a printout with all of her notes in the order in which they appeared in the book, with the section headings and everything else. So exactly in order. So professor's notes and students' notes as well, and then therefore the student. So you've got an online book, big deal. Well, the three big deals about it is the mechanism for getting it there. You've got a publishing engine now for the authors themselves. They can actually build books, and great functionality makes it very easy to do. And some of us, not hardly anybody as old as Roy and I are. Roy and I remember the days where you actually cut and pasted on paper and all of that sort of stuff, the different color paper and putting books together. This is a huge improvement over that, and particularly with sharing with co-authors. You've got it there, they can see it immediately, and you can have people contribute. You can change around, you can edit it very, very simply. Plus, you've got the power of the sources, which are all linked behind the materials, and in addition to being able to edit the statutes yourself in cases or whatever. So, you've got an online book, but you've got an engine where authors can build this. Anywhere you can get to the internet, then you can use this. And you'll be behind the shield while you're working on the book before it is, quote, actually published. So you and your authors may spend a year or 2 or 6 months, whatever, actually putting the materials together. And then when you do, it'll be published in an online book form But then, anybody who's interested in the book can see it online, can see the whole thing, and if they adopt it, can fiddle with it, can add their own materials, can rearrange, which is going to be a huge boon, because all law professors do that in one way or another. And it will allow faculty to add their own individual perspective and their own individual touch much more easily than we could have done any time in the past. And then the third dimension in which this is significantly different, very significantly, is if you go back to the table of contents, Justin. So we've got the book, and imagine that you've gone through and you've adopted this book, and you have made some changes. And whatever changes, however you've rearranged it, the book will appear in that form. And then will be available to your students in the form in which you have put the thing. The third great dimension of it is that that form is not just limited to the online version. It is an online book, but it's really an e-based book, because the user, the student, will be able to decide what form she wants the book in. If she wants to use it online, fine. She's got an online book and she can get access to it through the web wherever she is, at home, in a law school, or whatever. And some of my students actually do, and I've been using purely online material for quite some time. And my students at Wake Forest get used to that, they're accustomed to that. Not all students, not all faculty are going to like that. They're going to want it in other forms. Well, one form they're going to want it in is clearly a written form. Then it will be possible to have this book, not just publishing page by page, but the thing will be put together in essentially a PDF format, so you can have the whole book printed out. And you can either, and we haven't made any final decisions about how that will work. I mean, one way is for each individual student to print it out, which would kill the library staff and the lab staff. Another way that we're thinking about is vending this through Kinko's and similar entities that are doing it, or maybe their own local printing shops or something. So that in one way or another, it will be available in hard copy form. And there are a number of different ways that we are talking about. And we said a year ago at CALI that we were not intending to ignore traditional forms. We really were interested in cross-media, that whatever form folks wanted the materials in, we were going to try to make the materials available. That's true here. And that's why I've been pushing using the term e-based book rather than e-book. Because it is an online book. You put it together online, the professor can fiddle with it online and republish it and add her name to the front cover of the book. But then it's going to be up to the user to decide what's best for her. If she likes using online, fine. If she wants to download the thing and use it in a downloaded form, she can do that. One of the companies we've been working with, you want to illustrate that? We've been working with a number of book device companies, one of which is Go Reader, and it's out of Chicago, and they have the newest and brightest star in this, and this is a brand new device they have.
See this one.
We're going to have to.
We're hoping to hook it up to this because this does have a port that will hook into the back.
But we've been playing with Softbook, we've been playing with Rocketbook, dedicated devices. We've also been playing with Glassbook, which is software you can load and use on your desktop as a book reader. There's several of them that are available. What we imagine is that once a professor has adopted this book and fiddled with it, and then republished it with her name on the cover, then the students will know that the book is there. They'll go to the e-based book, and then they will take it down in whatever form they want it. If they want it as an online version, there'll be a way to do that. They'll get the students on copy of the online version. If they want to download it to something like this Go Reader or to a Rocketbook, they'll be able to do that through the internet or through a dial. So they would get the book. If they wanted it in an ebook form, they would get it by going to this site, choosing the book, putting in just a credit card or something to that effect, and then the book will be downloaded to their device with all security that is appropriate and that is necessary, including simple PDF, because I'm using Adobe's got it now with that Glassbook thing, which is very, very slim. And the notebooks are getting very, very thin, the X20 with the IBM. But this little device that no reader has, or you've got it hooked up, you can't see the control. It's a very light, thin book. It will hold, in one memory card, will hold, hold like 60 or 70 books. A law student can literally have all of her casebooks for her whole law school career on this device, which is just about half an inch thick. And it's kind of like a super PDA. It's running Windows CE. It's got, you can do handwriting on it. You can do highlighting, all of that. Make marginal notes in it. And they're adding more functionalities. And we've been playing with this because we like this device, but we are not committing ourselves. We're not choosing one device over another. What we hope, we don't want to make the choice of what form. We don't want to try to pick a winner there. What we want to do, as we said last year at CALI, we promised last year at CALI that we would do this, is committed to making this available in as many forms as possible, so the user can decide what form is better for her. And that's one of the problems I've seen in law school. Some kids are really up to speed because they want all e-stuff, and some students are not. They want traditional hard copies. So this book will be available, these books, these materials, in whatever form that the students want. And Doug Powell, who is the publisher for West Group, is here, and Doug has been a leader in this effort, although Doug and I both grew up in the time of hard copy books, and we both love hard copy books, and we're both dedicated to saving hard copy books and making them available. Nevertheless, we see the customer's need for having the text in various different forms. So Doug might want to talk about...
Well, for the foreseeable future, we'll keep print versions available also. That's the important thing. It will be basically available in any form the students want. Whether they use a device like this, whether they use it online, or whether they want the print version. Obviously, the print version will be locked at the beginning of the semester.
And there will be, in this book, for instance, we are, it will be published in very traditional form as well. There will be a hard copy of the original book, Epstein, Nichols, et al. Will be available if someone just wants to adopt that. But the problem with doing that, if you've got a faculty member who wants to fiddle with the book a lot and we change it around, then you'll have to have a print version some other way. And that will run the divide as well. And there's some complications there, but it's not a technology problem. There are other kinds of problems. So it will be available in hard copy forms, but also in these kind of intermediate forms as well. Whether it's just straight PDF that you download and use on your desktop or your notebook computer using Glassbook, or even simply downloading an HTML version of the thing. Download it, locked up on your computer. The students can carry that around. So any kind of form. Now we can't commit to being able to address every conceivable format that will be out there. That's just impossible to do. What we're assuming is that there will be some standards that will develop, and certainly PDF is one that is commonly used now in various other forms, and we're addressing those in this very minute. I mean, the front end of this thing is kind of done, and what we're doing now is working on the back end. So you've got an online book that's been created online, with the authors working collaboratively creating online. But then you've got the functionality of faculty members being able to come in to adopt it and change the book in any way that they want to, basically. Rearrange it, and by pushing the enter button, republish that book as edited by the adopting professor and make it available to the students. And available to the students in whatever form they want it in, letting the end user decide. And what we plan to do is this fall is the bankruptcy book. David and I and a few others are actually going to use the book this fall and this spring in teaching the bankruptcy course. There'll be very few of us this semester. In the fall semester, we'll be using it. It will be available for faculty across the country to look at and play with in the fall. But the actual users will be limited just to a few of us. There'll be a larger group that will use it in the spring. And maybe teaching at Harvard, you'll use it in the spring at Harvard. There'll be a larger group then to be using it. And we're going to evaluate the use, particularly the online version of the thing. But it's going to be a little while before we finally get into production. But the basics of the tool are there. I mean, we discussed this last year. Some people thought it was kind of smoke and generic, but it's not. It's there. There's content behind all of that, and it really does work. And we built it in using this device, and you're seeing it in this book. David?
Yeah, let me explain in part why we don't have the book finished and why that really, I think, shows the potential of this particular format. No reason that you guys should know this, but Congress for the last 5 or 6 months has been on the verge of finalizing bankruptcy legislation. It's not clear what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, but in all likelihood what is now going to happen is that Congress is going to enact pervasive changes in the bankruptcy laws sometime before classes start in the fall. And that's what we're waiting for. And we're waiting for that because if we were doing a traditional casebook, there'd be absolutely no way that we could wait. We would have had to turn the book into the publisher, and the publisher would simply have to publish the book and hope that bankruptcy would go away or nobody would notice the bankruptcy laws have changed. We can wait. And this method of doing a book is so much more efficient in terms of the elimination of the ground time. I mean, we in essence do the book. We write something and it is then the book. And so even if Congress waits until middle of July, we're going to have a complete book available to use in the fall. That's wonderful. Another thing I want you to look at, in the table of contents, case files. Now we haven't downloaded the case files because we want to include actual case files from cases that are decided under the new bankruptcy laws. If we were simply doing a hard copy book, we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to have 600 or 700 pages of actual files, of pleadings in a case. Why? Because chances are that most teachers aren't going to refer to most of the filings in the case. Different teachers are going to think it's important to have a student look at one particular pleading or another particular pleading or another order. You just can't afford to do that in a traditional hard copy book. We're going to be able to do that with this book. We will have a complete case file of an actual Chapter 7 case, an actual Chapter 11 case, an actual Chapter 13 case. And teacher's going to be free to use as much of it or as little of it as she chooses to, and it's not going to feel guilty if she doesn't use much of it, because it's not as if the students have paid $40 because this was 2,000 pages of print. I mean, that to me is a wonderful advantage. And let me just underscore the flexibility, and it really goes to what Joel said. It gives the authors so much more flexibility in terms of how you might think about organizing the book, because you know that the organization that you have chosen is not necessarily the organization that the users are going to be locked into. If you could hit Chapter 2, I think that's where it is. Yeah. We came up with the idea, and it's novel. I don't think I would have been willing to try this in a traditional book, that if you look at bankruptcy, and look at Chapter 2, and if you'll scroll down a little bit, we think that there are just a half a dozen or so basic building blocks that everything else in bankruptcy is derived from. Half a dozen building blocks, starting with discharge claim, property of the estate, secured claim, automatic stay, adequate protection. That's it. And everything else in bankruptcy flows from that. And so we came up with the idea that wouldn't it be better at the very beginning of the course to expose the students to all of the basic concepts? And then as you get into each of the concepts in more detail, the students will have a context. They will understand the basic game, and they will understand why the details of property of the estate are so important, because that's what satisfies a claim, because that's what's protected by the automatic stay. And so we came up with this idea that what we'll do is we'll have a chapter with a very quick introduction, so the students will have all the pieces of the game to play with. Well, everybody may not buy into that. But if a person doesn't buy into that, it will be very easy for her to say, okay, I'm going to take the beginning coverage of property of the estate in Chapter 2. But rather than going on to other basic building blocks, I'm going to cover property of the estate in detail. I'm going to drop down to Chapter 3 and 4 and the other things that Epstein and Nichols and the other guys have done about it. And so I think it gives the author a great deal of freedom in terms of, I'll try something new. I'll try a different approach to this because I know, and the users will know, if they've got a different vision of the course, or if I've got a different vision of the course next time I teach it. It's just really easy to move this stuff around. And this is wonderful. And I realize that I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm about as low-tech as you can get. I don't know how many times a day I end up calling Nichols or Justin about how do I turn on my computer kind of thing. If I can do this, anybody can do this. Any teacher ought to feel free to use this, even if you don't have a Terry Davis at your law school who helps me when Nichols doesn't answer the damn phone, which is most of the time. This is really neat stuff. Steve?
I'm sort of excited about this for two somewhat different reasons, although Steve has mentioned them briefly. Like maybe many of you here, 6 or 7 years ago, my employment discrimination book came out in an e-version, and nobody used it. It was totally useless. Whether it was Folio or Premise, didn't matter. They were equally useless. Whether it was Lexis or West, it didn't matter. Nobody liked it. Even though the concept of having things in electronic format was good, it didn't work. And why didn't it work? In my opinion, it was very simple why it didn't work. Because you had to read it on the computer, and nobody likes to read more than one screen at a time on a computer. How many people read a whole case on Westlaw from the screen? Almost nobody. You print it out and then you read it. Why? It's not so much, I think, because the resolution on the screen is not good for your eyes. I don't think it's so much that, or those gamma rays are striking it. It's an ergonomic thing. I like to read sitting back with my feet up on the desk, even though my mom told me not to do that. What I'm excited about, and I don't know where the e-book reader is right now. Yeah, she's had it for about an hour, but that's all right. Just lift it up. Just lift it up. And I'll be back. I think this is the answer to that. I don't know with this particular company. That's not the point. But this thing, it almost feels like a book. I mean, I'm hoping they'll make it with kind of a leather cover so you can open it up. No, seriously, some of them are like that. But, you can sit back, you can do this, you can go like this, there's a highlighting function, right? You can scribble notes on this. I think people will read from this.
And also, when you download this, I'm going to get back.
Only touch me there for a minute.
When you download the book from online, you've gone in, you've adopted, you want the book and you've made your changes, you republish it. The students then go online and they suck it down to their laptop computer or to this kind of device. What comes along with it is all those links and the hot links.
Exactly.
And this thing is ready for wireless. And it's already got an Ethernet connection and wireless and all of that. So if you're sitting where you're connected to Ethernet, you click on one of those links, you go to Westlaw or you go to the internet. We built in our book all kinds of links to the internet, to the reserve sites, to all kinds of places. And when we have broadband wireless, which is coming, it ain't here yet, but it's coming. When we have that, you'll be able to set out on your lawn or your boat or wherever you are, get those and have complete access in this. And again, this thing will host 60 to 70 law school cases. And that's all there is.
115 cases.
115, I'm sorry. We tested one. We did a pilot test of one at Wake Forest last semester in my commercial paper class. It was an earlier iteration of this, and we only held 60 or 70. I'm sorry.
No. Well, and that's exactly. It's not that this will do more than what we've been able to do with e-books before, but it does it in a form that people will actually use. And that's the difference. I think an e-book in this form will work where it won't work on a computer. And imagine, for example, particularly schools where the students are commuters, and they're on a bus or a train or something every day for some length of time to get to this. I mean, this is it. You know, you got the Microsoft Word on here. They're doing their outlines, they're doing the whole thing. They're putting it together. I mean, I think this is really going to be it. The other thing is, and I don't know yet if we can do this, but one tremendous advantage in the long term of this over the hard text is for compulsive guys like me who constantly like to change their content. My first casebook is in employment discrimination, where the law is constantly changing. And I love the opportunity to update my students, and now I do it on Tweedy, by just putting cases on it. But if we can eventually get it working so that the version you've got online is dynamic, rather than locked in when you send it out in the fall, and that once people register for the book, they get, to the extent that the Epsteins and the Friedmans and the others change the content on the master version, they get a constantly, potentially revised, updated master version throughout the semester. I think that's a terrific thing. I mean, it may blow people's minds, and there's too much information for me. But for compulsive guys like me, I don't think we can do that yet, right?
We can update it.
We can update it right now, well,
But that's really a policy question, and that's I want to end because we do want to take any questions. So we know, I mean, this does change things a lot. And frankly, it does begin to raise the question, what's the role of the publisher? We've always talked about that. This really does raise the issue. What value is Wes adding? So there are enormous questions.
John Mayer has the answer to that.
I'm looking at him. But what I want to emphasize to you, just two things at the end. One, the form is important. My commercial paper book is the first book Wes ever put on 5 1/4 floppy disks. Can you imagine back in those days? So, I've been playing with different format books for a long time. That is not as important to me. It is important to a lot of users, and that's why Wes wants to do it. But a lot of users, good old hard copy is going to be fine. I think what's really important about this is how you create it. And now you've got a device for collaboration through your publisher for actually building these things online in a standard form, a signature flow way that's connected to enormous resources of Wes Lawyers for collaboration, for discussion, for use, all of that. I think that's fantastic. And then secondly, and maybe really the most important piece of this, is this flexibility for the authors. Because even people who write their own books will change them around. But this is going to allow a great deal of individuality. Take a base of materials, and then you can easily add materials, whether it's relevant or not. I mean, you may want to teach a course in women's rights and bankruptcy. Well, you're not going to get an author to publish a book like that. There's not enough there. But here, you could take our bankruptcy book or some other bankruptcy book by Western Foundation and take the essentials out of the bankruptcy, and then easily add your own materials to come up with that special. And here's the neat part. So I think that, to me, is what is most revolutionary about this, and what's really going to help. And that makes Suffolk individual. That makes Wake Forest. That makes Kansas. I mean, it allows schools around the country and faculty to really add their own perspective and personalities, while still sharing some basics in common. And there are some good things about faculty teaching contracts. They're teaching the same course at least once. So I think that's going to add enormously to the diversity of thought, because we've got this easy mechanism for publishing. But also, the last point is we don't have the answer to all the questions you've got in your mind, and we know what all those questions are. And we have spent a year talking about it. The West has done the same thing with this that they did with Toll. This was not bought from somebody. This was built in-house, directed by law faculty. Law faculty are the ones who have been behind this. And West is widening the group of people who are involved in what West plans to do, and especially Doug, as the publisher for West, is to get West authors and Foundation authors and other interested faculty involved in answering some of the questions, because there ain't nobody doing anything like this. And we, West, is really out on the edge of this, because it's going to be possible. If you're sitting at home and you decide to hell with it, I don't want to use Nicholas Nest. I want to build my own book online. All you do is go to this site, and as a law teacher, because you've got free access to WebOn, you'll have free access to this device. You can build your own book, and you can distribute it throughout the country if you want to. You can become, through this channel, you can become your own publisher. It's going to widen up the market quite substantially. So again, in terms of diversity of thought and ideas and individualizing students, I think this is a move, and I think that's the most significant factor of it. But West wants you all, to the extent you want to be involved with West and thinking of the answers. The technology now is not a limit. We got all the technology solved. All the hard questions now are policy questions and are business questions, frankly. Business questions and policy questions. You know, I mean, we work on the copyright stuff, and, you know, all that sort of thing. So there are lots of questions, but West doesn't purport to have the answers to them. Doesn't want to answer it itself. It wants to get the law school community involved. The tech folks, the library folks, especially library folks, and faculty, everybody involved to make this as most useful as possible can be for legal education. We get the fullest potential out of it, not just for West, but really for legal education. Because that's why I'm involved in this, and David's involved in this, and Coach Joe is involved in it. We do not own any stock in the West. Thank you very much. We'll be glad to take any of the questions you've got. We're going to save a few minutes for questions. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. What's the URL of the site?
It's going to be lawschool.westlaw.com/ebooks.
One more time, Justin.
lawschool.westlaw.com/ebooks.
lawschool.westlaw.com/ebooks.
When you say it's going to be, it's not up yet.
Well, this is available on Monday as a beta site. Not everybody's going to have access to it because we're doing a limited pilot this fall. Stressed out, so we got to do stress testing and things like that. So,
Who would we contact if you wanted to come and participate?
if you're interested, you can contact me.
Justin's a project manager of this. He's led the development of it with the involvement from the very beginning.
All right, so what does a publisher add to it? You asked the question, I'm curious to know what you think.
Well, I don't know. It's funny I asked that question with Senator Egan with West. What value do you bring to this? I mean, obviously, what they bring is still content. That's what they're doing, and it's simply a different way of publishing and a different channel. So they're bringing content in a different form. If you publish your own book, if you've got your own materials that you put up there, you know, one of the questions that we have to, and this has not been answered, and Hal will jump all over me for raising this, but let's suppose that you get on there and John and you create a book. Now, I mean, you wouldn't have any trouble if Aspen or somebody wanted, you know, you'd get your book published. But suppose that, you know, nobody wants to publish your book in a traditional way. So you simply get on this device and you build your book, and it's going to be available just as Epstein and Nichols would be available. Well, one of the questions is, in that kind of case, do you want to distribute it free? Or if people adopt it, if you want to do your marketing, if people adopt it, what royalty splitting will there be? Because what West is doing there, the value they're adding there is they're providing the channel, they're providing the medium for it, they're providing the backup content, because you're going to be using their content, you don't have any copyright problems. So there is some, it's a different value, clearly. But to the extent that you build your own book online, you're offloading all of those production costs that would otherwise be involved, and that's going to be some savings. But yet they're bringing to it a distribution mechanism, which I think is a whole lot better distribution mechanism than we've had with hard copy books, frankly. And they're bringing with it flexibility. So they're providing a means. It's a different means. So it's, I don't think the role itself is different, but the means of carrying out that role is going to be different.
Steve, I mean, there is another difference too. One of the things that we'll do is we'll clearly indicate what is our author's material versus what is done by Professor John Smith or something like that, whether it's integrated or it's not. Material that we are quote unquote publishing will, gone through our review processes, will met our standards, that sort of thing. It won't be publishing just anybody. Now,
but I'm not sure
I can't claim I've written a West book by just uploading some things to your system.
I'm not sure what that's worth, frankly. I mean, I don't have any excellent. That's right. I mean, people know me. I've been in this because I'm just in technology. Burnett and I started Twin before these guys came around years ago. And so I'm in it for a whole lot of reasons. And one of the things about West, they've been really upfront and honest about this. I mean, they face the hard questions. And that is one of the questions. One of the issues we've discussed is, what if John wants to do his own book? Do we really need a publisher? Do you need the imprint of West? And the answer is, what's the value of that imprint? Because now, if you put the book up there, the market can decide whether it's any good or not.
Tried it, it didn't work.
Does the imprint of West or the imprint of Foundation and their processes, and I mean, I think that's a question that's still open, and that's going to depend on what kind of value West and Foundation continue to put in the process that they themselves endorse, whatever. But even if they don't endorse it and you publish it, they're still bringing value to you because they've got this common system now.
It's ASP. You're an application service provider at some level.
Yeah, publish Westlaw content.
But they have a more greater investment and commitment to preserving that archive too. And whereas a law school that's providing your book on a website, if you leave, or if your dean changes and they don't have the same commitment to the back of the web servers, that the users don't have that ability to go back and find that information, whereas I, as a librarian, feel that, well, if somebody mentioned they read this Epstein and Nichols, and I can find, even if I can't find that edition in that semester book, I know I can find those cases where that material through Westlaw or another, if other publishers get it.
And that's a very important point. We have one of the things West has discussed several times, and I've been in meetings, because this issue's been raised with some librarians who've been working with us, that West wants to provide a permanent, constant archive of all these books for archival purposes. So as a book, so we put up Epstein and Nichols, and next semester we'll change it. It's very easy to change it. You know, there'll be some case out, we'll add it, so it'll be another edition of this. But that original version will be kept and maintained for archival. And I've actually asked the folks at West, who are very accommodating in this, to work with the law librarians to figure out some kind of repository, some kind of system. But West is not flinched on that. They're absolutely committed for that purpose.
What would the licensing be for libraries on this? Because a lot of times for ebooks for libraries, they say only can be used by the purchaser or the user. And our university attorneys take on that. A lot of times they're very cautious and say, no, you can use it for the professor for whom it was purchased, or you can use it if you got one user in the library, once only. I mean, we do have ebooks publishers that we really can't use in the library article. Will that be possible?
Well, and I'm glad that is a really tough question. Friedman has an answer to that. But that's an example of the kind of question, and that's why West is absolutely committed to speaking to us as a consultant, that they want to get the community involved. Because nobody else is doing this. You're on the front edge of it, and you've got that kind of question. And West's goal in this, West's goal is first to preserve its role as a publisher in the new world, which makes sense, right? But secondly, if there's any reason to have you, you're going to have to be useful in all kinds of ways to your users. And so that's what they're after. That's why they want to bring as many people as possible in under this tent to discuss just those kind of issues. In fact, we don't have an answer to that issue. And there are a whole lot of answers. So the technology, this is what's so interesting about this. The technology now is there. For years we fiddled with this. Now it's here. Now you've got to face the policy questions or the business questions or the legal questions. Yes, sir.
On some level, it's the wrong question. Is that publishers will continue to do what publishers have always done. It's what are bookstores for? What are wholesalers for? What are trucking companies for? What are printers for? Publishers didn't own any of those businesses. Publishers did something else, and that something else they're continuing to do in very similar ways by providing the tools, by providing the editorial stuff, by providing the channels, by providing the overview. It's these other businesses that you better start selling your stocks in, if you're holding anything, because they're the ones that are going to be first at risk fastest. Publisher, if you're the producer of a play, like or a movie, publisher has this sort of mysterious role, but without them, the work doesn't get done. But that's not going to change something.
The publishers used to own extremely expensive printing plants.
No, they didn't.
Sure they
They
will.
didn't. They
Well, or they licensed
bought-
those or things.
No, they contracted with printing.
Well, West owned its own very expensive printing press, I guarantee you.
This is just bits and bytes, and so it's easily, the functions are fairly easily replicated. That's why that's a hard question about what does the publisher add to it, because it's not hard to, for software to be, done in different ways or something like that.
You got the publisher adding, and I agree. I mean, that's just the point I was making, that the means, the technology is not the printing press, it's this. But then you've got the question of the value the publisher adds in terms of editorial review, and that those are two separate issues. And largely it is just doing the same thing a different way, but now adding the question: are you going to proofread?
So is there going to be a less added value to proofread my personal case?
For a long time, all your students in one class are probably not going to use it in the same form. And so it's going to be hard for you to distribute that. And at least it appears that for the foreseeable future, you'll be doing print versions of these also. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, the need for print versions isn't going to go away, at least short term.
And the answer, I think what will happen, and again, this is just being talked about, and I hope you get involved in the process, but one way, if West decides to quote publish it, put its signature on the thing, then West will add some editorial services. They can do proofreading. They can do some stylistic sort of stuff. Whether they will or not, and that'll be the distinction between the unbranded, will still be available through there. But then let's suppose you put it up there and you want to make it available. Do you want to sell it or not? So even if it's not a West or Foundation branded book, you still got some issues about the relationship between you and the publisher. Because although you're kind of producing it yourself, you're still using their distribution channels. Now, it's easy to do technologically. We can track royalties and all that sort of stuff. That's going to be a slam dunk. In fact, many authors, Western Foundation authors, ask me, well, because here's what I imagine. Now, West is not, we haven't gone this far, but what we imagine, at least Friedman and I, but some of the West people as well, is that all West and Foundation materials will ultimately be up there. And what I can do is I can pull a chapter out of this book, chapter out of that book, but I teach commercial paper. I do a lot of procedure for a variety of reasons. I love to take counting